Why do they hate humanity so much? Because
yeah, it's much more than that. I mean, you have to look at people like Paul Ehrlich, who wanted forced sterilization agents in our water. You have to look at Obama's science czar, John Holdren, who actually said cheap energy is one of the hazards of a free society. This is an anti-human agenda. One of the co-founders of Greenpeace, Patrick Moore, left Greenpeace in the 80s, said it. The environmentalists today are practicing an anti-human agenda. You have Václav Klaus, the president of the Czech Republic, who's openly said since the fall of communism, the greatest threat to personal freedom is what he terms ambitious environmentalism. And you can prove this by the fact that whether it was global cooling, overpopulation, deforestation, species extinction, or global warming, the solution was always the same. International bean counters and bureaucrats taking over our lives, regulating us. This is very simply summed up by saying the more the plans failed, the more the planners plan. And that's what it's about. These are bean counters who think they know how to control our lives. It's an ideology of central planning at its core. Profit motive, I think, secondary, because they all make
so
money.
it's a cult of control freaks that want to come in Marc Morano and Alex Jones's house and want to tell little kids and scare the daylights out of them. Look, trees are blowing. Pay this big fat con artist money and he'll protect you. The good news is we've seen them with their facade of arrogant confidence man to now just grasping at straws and desperate. I know we can beat them. And is it too positive to say that basically we're about 10 rounds in and we're really kicking their ass?
We are, but if we look back, a lot of our defeats have come in the 12th round or the 15th round, depending on how many rounds you're playing. So you can't let up. And the greatest threat we would face, I submit to you this, Alex, is a weak Republican president. A weak Republican president would pass a climate bill before, and a Republican Congress would go along with it.
I'm glad you raised it. Let me stop you. We've got formerly worked with Al Gore, Rick Perry. We've got Mitt Romney. Al Gore praises him for supporting carbon taxes. Yeah. We've got Newt Gingrich supporting it and doing TV ads with idiots like Al Sharpton. So out of the field, then, who would you vote for?
Well, Perry talks exactly right on the issue. The question is he going to follow through? Perry has the rhetoric down. You mentioned Romney, Gingrich, all horrible. Rick Santorum has a very good position on climate change. Herman Cain, Ron Paul. If your issue is climate, it comes down to how much you trust Rick Perry on the issue, because he's saying the right things, although not very articulately at the moment. And then otherwise, Ron Paul has said the right thing. And as long as you keep government from doing anything, it doesn't really matter what a candidate believes in the science. The problem is it's really going to come down to defunding this as well. You can't have a President Romney or someone like that who's going to come in who's explicitly stated they support Al Gore's view of the science, doesn't look likely to cut and defund this scam. And that's what needs to happen, from the EPA, the Department of Energy, to our National Academy of Science. Our National Academy of Science is a sham. It took $6 million to study man-made global warming and turned around and lobbied Congress to pass a climate bill. Yeah. And this is the august body. People say, well, started by Abraham Lincoln. These are the esteemed scientists. No, this is now reduced to hackery. This is a special interest group. Our scientists, and there are only 24 members of the governing boards that vote for statements supporting man-made global warming. This is why you had a Nobel Prize winning physicist just resign another science group, the American Physical Society.
Well, Mark, that was my next point in the final close here, because I know you're busy and we've got to get on to other stuff here. We could talk for 10 days about these criminals. Is that all these prominent scientists, even people that have supported it, are saying, look, this is bull. Your claim that this evidence can't even be looked at is anti-scientific. Finally, in the final equation, you've talked some about the ways this cancer is trying to survive and metastasize. How do we finally beat these people? A, and B, and this is most important, is it an overstatement by me that this is the most important issue in the world? Because when I see globalists, one-worlders, consolidators, big mega banks, they are the ones funding this, and I've never seen hundreds of billions put into anything. This is their excuse to set up this global bureaucratic, socialist, anti-human system, and people need to wake up, in my view, that this is the big enchilada. This is the Death Star. We have got to blow this thing up because everything else is a side issue.
Absolutely, and that's what's scary. When any candidate or anyone running for office accepts the science, you're basically doomed long term. And what we're finding here, in Germany, the German climate advisor is calling for a CO2 budget for every man, woman, and child on the planet, Alex.
England is.
And England is calling for carbon ration cards for their workers so the government can monitor your airline travel, your car mileage, where you set your thermostat.
Jesus.
A level of control George Orwell didn't even contemplate. And Nancy Pelosi goes to China 2 years ago and says we need a complete inventory on every aspect of our lives in order to battle global warming. This is not a coincidence. This is the way they want to lead and they want to control. They don't think free men and free women can make decisions on their own. It's got to be a planned, managed economy and energy economy. And it's immoral and repulsive what's happening in the developing world as they shut down coal plants, nuclear plants, modern energy infrastructure, carbon-based, in favor of solar panel on huts made of dung. This is the greatest immoral thing. White, wealthy Westerners, white, wealthy environmentalists telling poor people of color they can't have what we have in our modern way of life. This is obscene, it's decadent, and they need to be exposed. There can be no quarter given, especially when it comes to funding. The next president has to defund, shut down. Because even defunding short term, the next president will restore the funding. So this is something, and we've got to be absolute on the science. You got to call them what it is. You cannot be intimidated by the media.
Exactly. These politicians try to sound reasonable and let this con artist Al Gore and the UN and then have a serious, debate with them when they're proven fraudsters. But listen.
By the way, Al Gore's spokeswoman canceled a debate at the last minute last night on another radio show. With a global warming skeptic saying she didn't want to get into it. So Al Gore's organization yet again has denied debating. Al Gore has never debated. As you know, Lord Monckton has challenged him.
Come on, Al, baby. Well, but I mean, that's my point here is that I have 3 children. I've studied political systems. I'm a history buff. And for anybody out there watching, this Al Gore crap that we're oil company funded, I get 0 money from oil companies. Most big oil companies are supporting it because they want to shut down coal. I don't get any money from coal either. I'm not saying this stuff's perfect. There could be new energies. The point is, this is authoritarianism, Mark. We think of authoritarianism as Hitler or Stalin or Mao, old images 50, 60 years ago. Every new generation has a new authoritarianism. And this cult of control freaks, I read their writings. They hate humanity. They're anti-human. And they're such degenerate liars. And I'm so glad Climate Depot is there. And thank God you're there eloquently fighting them. But you're right. We've got to stay on them and rout them out. And that's the final caveat here. This interview is going over, but it's so important. We appreciate your time. What about this call? Because it's now happening against me, where they're saying, go after them, get them. They're like racist, as Al Gore said in the 60s, and arrest Morano, Jones, Monckton, Ron Paul. I mean, these people are such authoritarians, they call it green fascism and say authoritarianism is good. I mean, can't people see a Hitler when they declare themselves?
Well, this is, we have Grist magazine, a big environmental magazine, actually called for Nuremberg-style trials for global warming skeptics, comparing us to Nazi war criminals. Al Gore has said we're flat earthers, we're people who believe the moon landing was fake, despite the fact that astronauts who walked on the moon are major global warming skeptics. And the head of the UN has said that, again, the Flat Earth Society, the smears, the intimidation, the threats have only worked against them. It has flushed out all these scientists who would otherwise have remained silent to finally speak out. That's why you're getting Nobel Prize-winning physicists resigning from science boards, protesting loudly about the cons.
Why do they miscalculate? I've got to ask this. Why do they miscalculate? Because I agree with you. Historically, when you crush people and intimidate people, they fight back. Why do these global warmists, control freaks, scum, authoritarians, and again, worse than that, words can't describe them, why do they think by intimidating and firing real scientists and attacking us and saying arrest us, why did they think it would make us shut up? I agree with you. This is why people are fighting them, because they see the authoritarian nature. A lot of people that bought into global warming, as you mentioned, Nobel Prize winners, go, well, since they're being authoritarian, let me look at it. They look at it and find out it's pure bull.
Here's the simple reason. They think it's 1985. They think it's 1975. They have not adjusted to the new reality of talk radio, cable news, the internet. And what they did, what Al Gore and the United Nations and the media tried to do in 2007 and 8 may have worked in 1977 or 1985, but it wasn't going to work in 2007 and 2008. The world exploded around them. We've made evening newscasts irrelevant. We've made CNN irrelevant. We've made Al Gore and his book and film and an Oscar and Nobel Prize is irrelevant. A majority of the human race isn't afraid of global warming, according to the latest Gallup survey of 111 countries. They have failed spectacularly. They're going on an old paradigm. They're going on a paradigm that would have worked decades ago when they could have crushed dissent and they controlled. We only had 3 television stations and some major newspapers, but it doesn't work now.
That's right. They're using old Cold War Soviet model crap, and we know that's where this all came from. It's like some weird vestigial leftover from that communist system, and it's failed. Marc Morano, I have heard nothing but pure veritas here. I think this is one of the best interviews I've ever done, and I've been honored to have you. ClimateDepot.com. When we defeat these anti-liberty traitors, you deserve a prize for this, and not a fake Nobel Prize, but a Congressional Medal of Honor against their tyranny. God bless you, sir.
Thank you, Alex. Enjoyed it.
Amazing. Listen, these people want to shut off our industrial base, shut off our power systems, because they've all invested in China. They are enemies of every man, woman, and child. We're going to break, and we're coming back to talk to Wayne Madsen, who went to Indonesia, who is going to be giving us a report on the birth certificate issue. I was never a birther. But the fact is, they're trying to shut down anybody that tries to investigate this. They're scared of it. It's turned out his Social Security numbers are fake. We're going to be covering that after this break. Stay with us.